Hello, everybody, and welcome to Narrative on this extraordinarily historic day as President Joe Biden announces that he is not going to seek the nomination of his party for the presidency for a second term. Instead, he is endorsing his vice president, Kamala Harris, to be the top of the ticket for the Democrats at their convention in August. Here's how everything went down today. The announcement by the 81-year-old president came in a rather old-fashioned way in a letter to the American people. In it, he writes, "My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation, in lowering prescription drug costs for seniors, and in expanding affordable healthcare to a record number of Americans. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances. We passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in history. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all of those who've worked so hard to see me re-elected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and trust you have placed in me. I believe today what I've always believed, that there is nothing America can't do when we do it together. We just have to remember we are the United States of America. Joe Biden. The decision not to seek re-election was made last night. Biden discussed the possibility with a small group of close aides, including top advisors Mike Donilon and Stephen Ricchetti, Deputy Chief of Staff Annie Tomasini, and senior advisor to the First Lady Jill Biden, Anthony Berner, were also there. Although the team had agreed on a path ahead, a final decision was held up until this morning. Even Biden's deputy campaign manager, Quinton Fawkes, went on the morning news rounds, and he denied reports that Biden was planning to drop out, insisting the campaign was proceeding full speed ahead. But then at 1:45, history was made. Biden informed his senior team that he had changed his mind and decided to withdraw from the race. This decision caught many of his White House staff members off guard. Then came a flurry of phone calls. Biden personally called Vice President Kamala Harris, then Chief of Staff Jeff Zients, and Campaign Chair Jen O'Malley Dillon to inform them of his decision. He then had a call with other senior advisors at the White House and campaign offices. The letter I just read you was then sent out to all Americans. At 2:13 came this post on X, formerly Twitter. My fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of the term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and to beat Trump. Let's do this. That endorsement for Kamala Harris, if it is in fact what happens at the convention, is historic in itself. She is the only person who, alongside him, received the 14 million votes, endorsing their victory in the nomination cycle in the primaries for the presidency of the United States. That's a very important thing. Of course, you want your nominee to have the support of your voters, and Kamala Harris has the support of those voters, just like Joe Biden had. But it also means she could become the first female president of the United States and the first African-American female president of the United States. Not only that, what it really means is that Joe Biden's vision, which he collaborated with Kamala Harris for the last 3.5 years, can continue into the future. They still have until January the 20th, 2025, where they can work together and develop a really smooth transition between what Joe Biden saw in the future for America and what Kamala Harris will execute and see in the future for America as her mandate begins in 2025, if, of course, she wins the nomination and the upcoming election. That's all very good news for the Biden-Harris team. The Biden-Harris campaign immediately becomes the Harris campaign for president. But maybe not everybody in the Democratic Party got that message, because soon after that came out, came Barack Obama's statement. Joe Biden has been one of America's most consequential presidents, as well as a dear friend and partner to me. Today, we're also reminded again that he's a patriot of the highest order. Obama's statement did, however, omit one thing, any mention of Kamala Harris as the nominee, and didn't mention who he'd be endorsing to replace Joe Biden. Instead, he said, "We will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, but I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. I believe that Joe Biden's vision for a generous, prosperous, and united America that provides opportunity for everyone will be on full display at the Democratic Convention in August, and I expect that every single one of us are prepared to carry that message of hope and progress forward into November and beyond." Now, it's unclear why there's no endorsement of Harris. Maybe he's expecting somebody else to be running for that nomination. Maybe he's got his own pick. Some people had suggested maybe Michelle Obama would be amongst the contenders for the nomination. But it certainly seems at this hour tonight, as everything becomes more clear, that Kamala Harris will be the nominee for the Democratic Party, and she'll be selected as that in this coming convention in August. In his reaction, the nominee for the Republican Party, Donald Trump, said that Joe Biden had been the worst president who had ever served. In other reaction from the GOP, House Speaker Mike Johnson and Representative Elise Stefanik called for Biden's immediate resignation from the presidency, arguing that if he's unfit to run, he's unfit to serve. Later this afternoon, Chief of Staff Jeff Zients managed communications across the administration, holding calls with the cabinet and senior White House staffers. He scheduled an all-staff call this Monday morning to address the situation. It's unclear when Biden will address the nation. He, of course, still is sick with COVID, but he's expected to do that address sometime this week. And he's also got a very important meeting coming up with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, who will be addressing Congress on Monday. That's the news we have for you tonight, but this story will continue to be reported on throughout this week on Narrative. Thank you for watching.
One day, you'll tell the story of autocrats, crooks, and kings who came for our freedom. A story of citizens who stood up to tyranny and won. The people prevailed and renewed an old vow to a more perfect union. And that was just the beginning. The story continues. Narrative, where truth lives.